If you're looking for something to drink on St. Patrick's Day other than green beer, then stick around because I got you covered. Hello folks, Rob Dreemeyer here. Welcome to Broadway Barfly. If you're new to the channel, I invite you to click that subscribe button and hit the little notification bell so you can join me back here every time I post a new video. This is actually more of a Use the Booze video than a St. Patrick's Day video. If you follow the channel, you'll know that every once in a while I reach to the back of the liquor cabinet, pull out a bottle of something I don't use very often, and look for new ways to use the booze. Today I have a bottle of the Dead Rabbit Irish whiskey, which is completely full, except for that little taste I took off the top. The Dead Rabbit is an Irish pub here in New York City, famous for its cocktails, and this is its namesake brand. And for the record, this is not a paid promo. I've been to the Dead Rabbit a couple of times, and I believe I bought this bottle after one of my visits there, but honestly, I have no recollection of buying it and completely forgot that I had it. I'm not a whiskey expert, but I do know that Irish whiskey is made with barley, which gives it a lighter flavor than our American whiskeys, which are made with more corn and rye. The only cocktail I can remember making here on the channel that specifically called for Irish whiskey was the Psycho Killer, which coincidentally comes from the Dead Rabbit. Otherwise, my spirit of choice for whiskey cocktails is rye. That's my personal preference unless something specifically calls for bourbon, like a Boulevardier. So with St. Patrick's Day around the corner, it's serendipitous that I found the bottle of Irish whiskey because it's the perfect time to use the booze. I'm making 3 cocktails that are completely new to me, so I'm excited about that. 2 are contemporary cocktails created by modern mixologists, and 1 is a vintage cocktail from the vaults. First, I'm making the Dubliner, which was created by Gary Regan, known as Gaz, who sadly passed away in 2019. His Dubliner cocktail calls for Irish whiskey, sweet vermouth, Grand Marnier, and orange bitters. I'm going to be using Regan's Orange Bitters No. 6 because Gaz is the guy who created them. He garnishes his cocktail with a green maraschino cherry, which I don't have. I don't know that I've ever actually seen one, so I'm going to be using just a regular maraschino cherry. The second cocktail we're making is Dale DeGroff's Irish Blonde. Dale DeGroff is pretty much considered the godfather of modern mixology. His Irish Blonde cocktail is made with Irish whiskey, orange curaçao, fino sherry, and orange bitters. He calls for a specific brand of Irish whiskey, but since this is Use the Booze, I'm going to be using the bottle I have on hand and hope it doesn't take us that far off base. He tops off his cocktail with a flamed orange peel. I'll give it my best shot and we'll see how it goes. And finally, our vintage cocktail is the Tipperary. It comes from Hugo Ensslin's book, Recipes for Mixed Drinks, published back in 1916. The Tipperary cocktail showed up again a few years later in Harry McElhone's book, ABC of Mixing Cocktails, but with some different proportions. The version I'm making comes from liquor.com. It appears to be a slightly modified version from the Harry McElhone version and is credited to, where else? The Dead Rabbit. You know, maybe this should be a paid promo after all. well, that was a little bit of a chore, but now on to the good part. We get to taste them. As I said, I've not had any of these before, but I suspect I'm going to like them because I like everything that went into them, but we'll see. I'm going to taste them in the order they were made, so we'll start with Gaz Regan's Dubliner. That was the Irish whiskey, sweet vermouth, Grand Marnier, and orange bitters. Cheers. It's good. It's a little sweeter than I might have thought it would be. You definitely get the Grand Marnier. And the Irish whiskey, you know, you can't tell the difference. The Irish whiskey has a brighter flavor, a little more of a bite to it. Might be a tad heavy on the orange bitters for my taste, but it's coming from the guy who created the bitters, so that sort of makes sense. Yeah, this is a winner in my book, so 1 for 1. Let's see what we get on the next one. Next we have Dale DeGroff's Irish Blonde, and right off the bat you can see where it gets its name. This was the Irish whiskey, curaçao, fino sherry, which is dry sherry, and orange bitters, plus the flamed orange peel. You know, you probably noticed I kind of cheated a little bit in the editing. I had a hard time getting the orange peel to flame because my oranges are a little old. I can do it. I promise you I can do it. I've done it on video before, but anyway, let's not worry about that. Let's give it a taste. Oh, yeah, I like this one. I like dry curaçao, and that comes through quite well. You know, there was only 1/4 ounce of the sherry, so you really don't get a lot of that. You mostly get the brightness of the whiskey with that nice orange of the curaçao. Yeah, this is one tasty cocktail. That's 2 for 2. Let's give our vintage cocktail a try. And finally, we have our vintage cocktail, the Tipperary, which comes from that 1916 book by Hugo Ensslin. As I said, I made a version that I found on liquor.com credited to the Dead Rabbit. Basically, it has a whole lot more of the Irish whiskey. The original version and Harry McElhone's version had more like equal parts of the Irish whiskey, the sweet vermouth, and the Chartreuse, which I'm curious to see what happens in here. So, cheers. Oh, yeah. That's a nice one too. I tell you, that Chartreuse and the Irish whiskey really pair nicely together. They complement one another really well, and then you get the sweetness from the vermouth. Of course, it's a very different cocktail than the other two that have the Grand Marnier and the orange curaçao. This might be the sweetest of the three, but the sweetness comes from the Chartreuse for sure. Yeah, you can't go wrong with this one either. Okay, so that is 3 for 3. What a great way to use the booze. I am so happy I tried all 3 of these cocktails. I can't even really tell you that I liked one over the other. They are really great on their own merits. Sort of depends on what you're in the mood for. But let me tell you, you have one or all of these and you'll have a happy St. Patrick's Day. Until the next time, cheers. If you enjoyed the video, why not give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends? Feel free to leave your comments and click that subscribe button because there's a lot more Broadway Barfly to come.